Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, February 13th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, the Trump EPA wipes out the basis for all federal emission standards. EV registrations fall for the first time in a decade. And vehicle inventory climbs as sales slow. Plus, Marianne Johnson of Cox Automotive and David Richardson of AWS joined the show to talk about how agentic AI is changing what's possible in dealership operations.
That is going to change consumers' expectations in the dealership of how you engage with me, how you service with me, how you sell to me. It is amplifying what is possible now.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. The Trump EPA is repealing the 2009 endangerment finding. That's the scientific determination that greenhouse gases threaten public health. Trump calls it the single largest deregulatory action in American history. He says the move eliminates all vehicle greenhouse gas standards starting from 2012. The move creates fresh uncertainty for automakers who've warned investors about climate risk while criticizing Biden-era standards. Environmental groups will almost certainly challenge the repeal in court. A federal court already ruled January 30th that a climate skeptic report supporting the repeal is legally dubious. We'll have more on this story in a minute with our own Molly Boygan. U.S. electric vehicle registrations fell last year for the first time in at least a decade, dropping just 0.4% to 1.3 million. That's according to S&P Global Mobility. The decline followed Congress repealing the $7,500 EV tax credit in July. After the credit expired September 30th, December registrations crashed 48%. But analyst Tom Libby says the slowdown actually started earlier. High prices pushed mainstream buyers toward hybrids instead, and early adopters who wanted EVs already bought them. Tesla remained dominant with a 45% market share, despite its registrations falling nearly 7%. And U.S. new vehicle inventory dipped to 2.9 million units in January, but LotLink's data shows that slower sales pushed days supply up nearly a week to 77 days. Electric vehicle inventory climbed to 132 days supply, while hybrids and gas vehicles each rose by a week. All 7 automakers that report monthly data saw supply increase. Volvo jumped from 39 to 130 days after weak January sales. Toyota maintained the industry's tightest inventory at just 29 days supply. And those are today's headlines. You can read more about those stories and all of today's news at autonews.com. Automakers have been planning around federal emissions regulations for over a decade. Now, automakers are working with a completely blank slate after the Trump administration tossed out the EPA's endangerment finding. To help us understand what this means for the industry, let's bring in Molly Boygan, who's been covering this story. Molly, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me, Kel.
All right, Molly, did the auto industry want this change?
It's sort of a complicated question because the automakers were very resistant and skeptical about their abilities to achieve the greenhouse gas emission standards that the EPA set under the Biden administration. The industry consensus was that they were very, very challenging, unrealistic, and there was a lot of criticism about the standards. However, the Trump administration went a step even further, saying, not only are we going to reduce the standards, we're actually going to eliminate the standards altogether. So now there are no greenhouse gas emission standards. And we're also going to gut the rationale that the government used to create those standards. So that actually, according to the automaker letters that they submitted to the government, was sort of a bridge too far, because they're saying, we want consistency, we want to be able to plan. They imply basically that it's unrealistic to expect that there will be no greenhouse gas emission standard. And so this change is creating a lot of uncertainty for the manufacturers.
You write that a federal court already ruled in January that the climate skeptic report supporting this repeal is legally dubious. What does that signal about the legal challenges ahead, and how long could automakers be stuck in limbo waiting for courts to decide?
There is almost certainly going to be legal challenge to the decision to repeal the endangerment finding. as you said, there was already a ruling last month that related to this report that the EPA used to support its decision about repealing the endangerment finding. And a court found that the working group that was convened to write that report convened in violation of the law. So that's one thing. And folks are waiting to see basically if the use of that report in repealing the endangerment finding will be found lawful. The other thing is that there have been many, many, many legal challenges to the endangerment finding since it was established in 2009 under the Obama administration, more than 100 lawsuits. And in every one of those, it's been upheld. Most recently in 2012 by a DC court. So the interesting thing now is that the endangerment finding was established related to a Supreme Court case, Massachusetts versus the EPA. There are some legal scholars and others who are watching this to see, is the Trump administration anticipating legal challenge and basically wanting to return this issue, whether the EPA can regulate greenhouse gas emissions, to the Supreme Court now that the Supreme Court has a conservative majority. So we'll be watching all of the different legal challenges and watching the potential trajectory to the Supreme Court for this case.
All right, that's a lot. Check out all of Molly Boygon's reporting at autonews.com because she's very good at it. Molly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kel.
Coming up, Cox Automotive and AWS executives talk about how agentic AI is going beyond answering phones to reimagining dealership workflows. That's next on Daily Drive.
Are you a dealer creating a workplace culture your employees are proud to be part of? Applications are now open for the 2026 Automotive News Best Dealerships to Work For program. This isn't just an award, it's a chance to get real insight into what's working at your dealership and where you can improve. And we've expanded the categories this year, recognizing everything from technician experience and leadership development to AI enablement and employee retention. The registration deadline is April 17th. Find out more and apply at autonews.com.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Artificial intelligence was everywhere at this year's NADA show. But there's a new type of AI making waves, agentic AI, which can reason through problems and take action rather than just provide answers. Automotive News senior retail editor Dan Shine spoke with Marianne Johnson, Cox Automotive Chief Product Officer, and David Richardson, Vice President of Agent Core at AWS. Here's their conversation.
Marianne and David, thanks you, and thanks for being here, and welcome to Daily Drive.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
So, Cox Automotive, AWS together, what's that relationship? How did that come together, and how are you working together on this?
Yeah, I would say everybody knows Cox Automotive. We've had so much of an ecosystem play for a long time. We were 80 plus acquisitions as we came together as Cox Automotive. But in 2018, we made the decision to take everything to the cloud and go digital native and cloud native. And AWS was the right choice for us. Mm-hmm. And we've been on that journey. We got to the cloud pretty fast, and then we've been building ever since. And I brag on AWS. I don't always brag on a lot of our partners. But the co-innovation, being on the edge of where things are going, we're doing that together and doing it at scale, and it has just been amazing. So, and with AI, everything that we're doing with AI, the possibilities of what are coming to fruition right now is off the chain, and AWS is right on the front of what's happening there as well.
So how is AWS involved in dealership operations? I think people don't know that you are, but what do you do for dealerships?
Yeah, we're not directly involved in dealership operations. Instead, we work with Cox and others in the larger ecosystem and partner with them to help them bring their deep knowledge and data and history about supporting dealers where we can back them up through technological innovation.
Right.
Okay. So it seems like NADA has a theme every year, or the buzz of every year, and it's AI this year. Everything's AI. Every new name has a .ai on the end of it.
Yes.
And you guys are talking about agentic AI, and I think a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, I'm just still kind of getting my arms around AI. Tell me about agentic AI and how that is different than your run-of-the-mill ChatGPT AI.
You want to hit that one first?
Yeah.
And then,
So it starts with that. But, and look, this is brand new. Like, people really only started talking about this and building this way about a year ago. So if you think about what can that AI do? Sometimes it's just there to give you an answer, and that's what we get with ChatGPT and others. But it has an ability to work through a problem, to be able to go and act. And so what makes agents different is we're taking advantage of that sort of reasoning and planning and working capability, coupled with tools that have existed for a long time, like back office systems. And now you put those two together, and it can solve in an economic and fast way problems that before were just too brittle, too hard to do purely through automation.
I'll add to that, but what's been possible, and I will say reInvent's the big AWS show they have every year. So reInvent a year ago, November, maybe a year and 4 or 5 months ago, we saw agentic and we realized this is something that is fundamentally different than ChatGPT or generative. It is truly where you can give an agent a goal, teach it, give it context, and it will learn and take action for you. And you can really, really reimagine things differently than you ever thought before. If I want to get from point A to point Z, you can really rethink how you do that in ways that create new customer experiences, create new employee experiences. For me, my own personal productivity with the agents that I've built and that I'm using inside the platforms I'm using, my productivity has lifted up massively. I can scale myself. So then you start thinking about every function in a dealership, every activity in a dealership. How does everybody get better? And then you go pick the workflows or the value streams at a dealership that can really be transformed. And now we can do some things we never could do before.
Like, for instance, like in the service department, if I wanted to sell more batteries or sell more tires, or I want to, the people who have declined services in the last 12 months, I can send out an agent. I can tell an agent, this is what I want to do. I want you to contact all those customers, and they will go off and it will do that.
So there's simple use cases, and then there's complex use cases that you couldn't really make happen before, but now you can. So an example in what you just gave, if you think about the life of a vehicle and what is predictively going to need service, the life of that consumer and their ownership experience, all of that data, like we have a lot of that data at Cox, you can take that data and you can anticipate that customer's needs, that vehicle needs, and you can be proactive rather than reactive like you've never before done, and create new experiences for your customers. I was going to say this on stage earlier, but if you go look at what Mercedes and NVIDIA have done and the investment they've made over this past year, they are changing the experience of a consumer inside a car at a level 4 autonomy. That is going to change consumers' expectations in the dealership of how you engage with me, how you service with me, how you sell to me. It is amplifying what is possible now in a new way in the dealership community. And we are going to have to make sure that we meet that expectation.
There has to be a lot of trust, David, in this, and that you are sending something off to do a task that you are hoping and expecting that they will perform. How do you get dealers and dealerships to kind of buy in that to trust?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Trust is a big factor here. And I think it starts the way most new things do, like find trusted partners. Who are the partners who understand your business, but who also are known and have a reputation for investing in the underpinnings of trust, things like security, availability, scalability, data accuracy, because unless you're building on that type of solid foundation, it's going to be really hard to achieve a trust outcome. So Start with partners.
The auto industry, it's slow to change, slow to adapt. And I think something like this can be scary for dealers and GMs. And what's your advice to dealers who know that they should be in this, but are afraid or don't know the first step? How do you get them in and tell them that it's going to be okay?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit of our own story at Cox Automotive. We've been AI for a long time, but traditional AI of machine learning, predictive analytics, and everybody's kind of got used to that.
Yeah.
When generative happened, there's one thing they can do right now, just get going. Our VIN Solutions actually has a generative solution with our proprietary unique data that allows a consumer to be engaged in what matters to them. Get started in something. That's a simple use case. That's a high value use case. You're seeing 26% lift on those. Get started there. Come visit us or anybody else that's doing this and think about these are some no-brainers, no regrets moves on some things to do. Once you start realizing and see the benefit show up, then you got to look at, I don't care whether you're running a large automotive group, a 2 rooftop, a single rooftop, any vertical, any business has to rethink their business to stay competitive. And whether you're Steve Rowley, the CEO, or whether you're a family-owned business, you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do? What is your role? And how can I do this while, in my opinion, doing it responsibly and finding the human connection and how to amplify that human connection? It's that combo.
Not doing anything is not
I don't think it's an option.
No.
It's just not an option. And there will be plenty of automotive dealer groups and dealers that lean in, and they're going to have an advantage. And so you don't want to be in that situation where you're disadvantaged. Think about what matters most to your reputation, your tone, your voice, and then partner to be able to make sure that what makes you special still comes through.
Yeah. And what are AI agents doing in dealerships now? Are there examples that you can give on a service side, or am I not,
I'll give a couple real quick. So you can come look at our booth if you're here. One of the things we did is we took the service technician and amplified their productivity. So we know everything on the manuals. We know what they need to do for recommended parts. We've made that super easy for the technician to have that voice interaction with their own assistant to level up how they're fixing the car. In our own fleet business, as an example, we built out FleetMate to help estimate the damages on the vehicle. We put all the information. You need new brakes. It completes the information for you, creates an accurate estimate. Took a 2-day process down to 30 minutes. And I'll give you a crazy story. And these are the kind of examples that are going to happen. We had a technician who had some downtime. He went into our FleetMate, it has our large language model in it, and it just asked, hey, is there any vehicle close by that has a fire code for a trouble code that I have the part for that I can be in 30 minutes? And it showed him this vehicle at this location just fired the code. He had the part. He called the client and said, I can come get this vehicle fixed and back on the road for you. They didn't even know they had a problem. And so the things that can start happening are like a flywheel. So I would just encourage to think about any activity, virtual assistant, service technician, vAuto expert in your pocket. It's really cool.
And part of what I love about these things that Cox Automotive has built is how quickly they built them. Like, these were not like, let's take 2 years and plan and decide on what our strategy was. Like, let's learn by doing. And that's been where the partnership has been fantastic, because the things that Cox has been trying to do have fed back into the products that we built in Amazon Web Services and made those products better as well.
And I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
So in July, the whole reference architecture of how to do this with what David was talking about with security, with traceability, audibility, knowing that a model is performing the way it should, the agent's not going to take an incorrect action and risk your business. That framework doesn't exist. So we decided to take our AWS partners, their top SMEs from AWS, a top SMEs from one of the leading frontier model providers, and they came on site with us, and we built things that you see that are in customers' hands right now. We called it Project Labor Day. We had working, scalable, secure code in 60 days and put it in customers' hands, and our partners did alongside us. And that whole, what I call reference architecture, is now where we can feel confident, and we'll have to stay on top of it because things are changing continually, of how to do this right and how to do it at scale, and know that you can go to sleep at night and say that agent's going to help my business, not hurt my business.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Molly Boygon, Lawrence Iliff, and Larry Velaquette for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on the EPA's endangerment finding repeal, agentic AI in dealerships, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for our weekend drive edition of the show, where I'm joined by Larry Velaquette and Michael Martinez as we discuss the biggest news stories of the week.
The transition here that they're making with the Highlander, moving it to a BEV platform, I think their calculation here is they still want to have something in every segment, including EVs. They think this will help transition some folks over, and it'll pay off in the long term.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.